Hello everyone, William here, with the lack of time and preparation in mind, and I'm traveling around. The content and form of the video might be cross-platform, right? Vertical and horizontal. With that in mind, what can we talk about in terms of updates for Vehicle 1A and, some other stuff. So, when we talk about a project, right, we are very, very ahead of what was the Osaki project. In what way, you might ask? And that is, we are defining these key things before we even start the project. Right, before we even start on timeline, which that's a little bit of a different thing that I'll talk about timeline-wise, but there's this white paper, which I've written, and that is to say, hey, this is what we're doing. And this is the intention, this is the budget, this is the timeline, this is what it should look like, how it performs, all that stuff, to answer all of that up front, to address that as a timeline. That's what we're doing. And then, as of late, we are doing a analysis on the drivetrain. Why is this important? Well, in my experience of doing this in the past with another vehicle, which was my senior capstone vehicle, we kind of knew that starting with the drivetrain is very, very important. The form factor, and what also is working for us is the off-the-shelf components, the OTS part of it. We are intending to use the donor car from the drivetrain as well as the vehicle for which we're taking the majority of the components on. This is meant to be a mature decision. It's meant to be something that is, so we're not cross examining, I guess, or limiting ourselves per se to something that is, using a Chevy engine and a Miata suspension and stuff like that, right? We generally want to stay with one type of vehicle to make it easy to fix and repair, and also something that we are capable of reverse engineering quicker. This was a point I brought up in Osaki, where I said, hey, we need to use off-the-shelf components because we can measure from that quickly, we can tool up quickly to that, right? Our design can have this incorporation that we buy off the shelf, and this was rejected. Alrighty, I'll talk more about this, but I have to go right now. See ya. Hello everyone, very much a different day. We're going to continue where we last left off. I'm either going to make a quality video, or I'm going to make no video. So I'm just going to put this out there, right? Whoever my audience is, I'm just going to do it, right? People need to know. Alright, let's turn this thing on too. Hope it's not on low battery. Looks like it is. Well, alrighty. So here's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to see first where the range of this microphone is at. Anyways. So, oh yeah, I'm putting up a light in my bathroom. So that's what you're going to watch today. When we talk about something that's very esoteric, something that is, nobody really knows about, it's very easy to criticize it. And I'm speaking to the Osaki project. It's very easy to say, oh, it didn't work, or we didn't have a right design, or the design wasn't great. And it's also, we can measure it, relatively speaking, based on these new project parameters. That is what makes both documentation, a SIPOC for the drivetrain so important, right? There's a lot of people who, say, for example, carry over from the Osaki project saying, oh, it wasn't successful, or it was, but they really have no real metric to say what made it successful, right? Nobody really remembers the design of anything coming out of that project. And it's not to anybody's fault. It was the first of its kind, and the original creators, just couldn't keep up with it due to personal life circumstances. Us, on the other hand, we are very, very far into the design for some of these things because they are measurable, they are
Hold on, guys. Let me open this thing up real quick. It's a ladder. Wow! Alright. So, let's open this bad boy up. If I can figure it out. I cannot. Anyways, when we talk about the drivetrain, a lot of people will have a bunch of different ideas for the same thing. They'll say that the Honda Civic is the way to go, or the Toyota Corolla, or the Honda Goldwing, like drivetrain, like the engine and transmission. There's a lot of preference in this. So how do you eliminate preference? Well, the first is to identify the stakeholders. What do we want out of it? Well, that's when you develop a success criterion for a bunch of your choices. So when we deal with a bunch of choices that, yes, they all do the same thing at the end of the day, it all boiled down to the years of the vehicle itself. We're sticking to generally, I think it was about 20 years old, which is, whatever. And a lot of this also is incumbent of the cost. So this is, look at this. Look how ridiculous. I have to assemble my own ladder. We got to assemble our own ladder. Yeah, okay. Anyways, I had some sugar. Anyways, so when you're up against a bunch of these choices, you have to approach it analytically to narrow it down. These are all good choices, right? Your Honda Civic, your Miata, whatever. It's all good choices. So how do you eliminate it to the best choice out of all these good choices? That is incumbent of... All right, guys. Here's the... it's like a 2-bolt thing for my ladder just to get that guy. Ridiculous. Anyways. Alrighty, so I got the small light out. Yeah, there's a shadow behind me. Not very ideal. Anyways, we'll see how long this small light lasts, right? It only maybe like 20 minutes. We'll see. I don't think it'll be a 20-minute video. Anyways, so we have all these great choices. We're evaluating on which one's the best. Things like the availability, the price to become that donor car. So it becomes very evident that we really like the cost, right? Whatever is the cheapest is the one we'll go with. And up until a certain point, we're evaluating this, and it's looking like, I believe, is like a 2000 Honda Civic. And then I mentioned getting a Toyota Corolla, and it turns out the Corolla was cheaper and everything else, satisfies everything that we want to do here. So with everything from that donor car, we're now going to use stuff from that, and it's going to be based on that. So we're going to try and use as much as we can. And again, it turns more into your philosophical principles of why would you want to buy this car versus other cars, or rather like a real car. And to that I will say that it's just like buying any other car that you perhaps want. Most people are not buying, let's say, the Toyota 86 or the Scion FRS every day, even though it's probably the most affordable sports car out there. Another aspect is designing this car, doing all the work for it. It's very easy. It's easy, you just gotta commit time to it. And it then becomes a motivator thing. How many people do you know are designing cars that are driving on the road today? Not many. To me, I saw this wave of what I will say as failure, and that inspired me to say, what could have been done better? What can we do better? What is measurable for success? How can this have been done better? All that stuff to prove to somebody that I, just a normal Joe Schmo, can do it. So that is the real motivator of today. Many people can do this stuff, right? Anybody can do the same kind of thing I'm doing, but those sticking to it and those that can, finish that project becomes a kind of, not a quick success, but a very long, nobody can really do it kind of success. It's something I've preached to the team to not, of course, skip out on family time or whatever else you're doing with your life. But at the end of the day, at the end of the week, you have 1 or 2 hours at this project. We'll need some great people to be able to work on it and commit to something that is pretty cool, right? That's something that, say, for example, you approach at an interview and they say, tell me about yourself. And you're just like, well, I am an engineer on this open source car project, and we made a running and driving car. How many people do you know that can really say and do that? Right? I've noticed when people are like, oh, so you're a car guy, right? Like, what do you work on? Right? And they're like, oh, yeah, everything. I don't know. Right? People seem to like that. Hands-on skills, whatever. So, with that in mind, right, we are 4 minutes in for this new clip. Anyways, with that in mind, what can we expect next? Well, in the thing of designing this car, which is by itself already a difficult task, we are looking at a 1-year turnaround. So what does that mean? A 1-year turnaround. Oh man, am I gonna have to... Yep. Unbelievable. Anyways. Oh, just barely. Yeah, this is gonna look great. Yeah. Alright. So, a 1-year turnaround. Alright. So, month one is, figuring out the overall dimensions of the vehicle. A lot of the concept work for what this vehicle looks like has some preliminary rules, such as straight panels, and if there's a bend in it, it's a one planar bend. And so that's vastly different from, let's say, a side profile of a Kia, which has all these contours and edges and stuff, and it's just very unrealistic. Our car is going to be a flat panel car. It's going to be looking tasteful and geared towards a certain audience that wants that kind of look of a car, kind of a creator's car, something different. And so month by month, first month, as I recall, is kind of your concept of what it's going to track, what it's going to be, its length, with all that stuff. Month 2, month 3, all throughout that's going to be looking at stuff like, design. So, again, very easy. All this stuff's easy. Most important part is getting up and doing it, proving to yourself, most of all, that you can do it, right? Nobody else knows about this project except to show up and do it and walk away knowing that you've tried your hand at something, just like making an airplane, just like building a boat, or proving to yourself that you can do it, proving to yourself that learning maybe who you really are after the fact of learning all this and doing all this, that you're a better person, right? If I did this for money, then I wouldn't reach out and make it an open source project and whatnot. I would, of course, go the traditional route, but most of my success has been, what's it called? Non-conventional, right? Most of my success has been non-conventional. And so the best thing I can do is try and try and try. Most people don't have that kind of vigor, perhaps, to undertake that. And then there's this thing. I gotta get a self-tapper screws, maybe, or drywall screws. Depends on what I got, right? Anyways, I think that's all I got for updates on Ohio Automobile, on Scarlet Aerospace Technologies, both businesses that I run. Just gotta try and do something. Ohio Automobiles 1A, it's a very easy project. It's getting up, it's committing time to it, it's being there every time to make it a reality, right? And of course, all the documentation to prove to ourselves what that success criterion looks like. Or if there's some kind of colossal failure, somebody can pick up that project. They can look through the notes. They can say what went wrong, and maybe they can take up after me. Anyways, hope you guys have a good rest of your day. It's probably the second day in a row here in our state that it's above 60 degrees, and so that's pretty great. But it's been storming. All right, see you guys.